Hello, and welcome to Marriage in Real Life with your hosts, Eric and Patsy Richards, a podcast about two imperfect people with an imperfect marriage. This podcast aims to help listeners know that God, who is perfect, can use your imperfections and your imperfect marriage to help others. So let's laugh and learn. I hope you enjoy the episode, and let's get straight into it.
So glad that you have joined us for Marriage in Real Life.
Yes.
All right, you excited, babe?
I am so excited.
All right, amen. How was your day? How was your day today?
My day was good. It was good. Relaxing. You know, one of my babies didn't come today, and I really miss him. He's my homeboy, but he's not feeling well, so we sending prayers out to him that he feel better and come to school tomorrow.
Okay, all right. Well,
how was your day?
Yeah, my day was good. You know, came to the business and cleaned up a little bit. So I'm so glad. I'm so glad we got this business that you're proud of that.
I am.
All right. Well, again, my name is Eric.
And I'm Boss Lady P.
All right. And we just want to welcome you to Marriage Real Life, and we're just going to get right into it. I'm so glad. Let's talk about how we got here. All right. Let's talk about how we got here. You know, you come from a big family.
A huge family.
Well, tell me a little bit about your family, babe.
Wow. Oh, goodness. If I could give out a number, and this is just a guess, it's about 225 cousins that I have, and I am the oldest of them all.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
man.
And my grandmother, she had 13 children of her own, and each one of them reproduced.
Okay.
And I remember her telling us when we were I said, why is it so many of us? And she said, well, the Lord said, be fruitful and multiply.
Be fruitful.
I didn't think he meant for us to do it by ourselves.
Oh, be fruitful and multiply.
Yes, a lot of us. I have uncles and aunts, and my mom is the oldest daughter. I'm the oldest granddaughter. My daughter is the oldest great-grand. So we have some generations going there.
Wow.
A lot of us.
Wow. That's good. It's surprising that you come from a big family. I come from a small family. Right. It was just us four and no more. You know, me, my sister, my mom, and my dad.
Right.
And it's so unique that you come from a big one. I come from a small one. Wow, how God put that together, right?
Yeah.
Right. So give me some funny things that happened. If you could think of a funny story, one funny story about your growing up in your childhood, can you give it to me?
Wow, you kind of put me on the spot with that one because there's so many. In my family, we had this one uncle, Uncle Sam. Okay. Everybody loves Uncle Sam. You know, Uncle Sam don't come around a lot, but when Uncle Sam come around, you knew he was around. Mm-hmm. And Uncle Sam was this crazy artist. He would, like, whenever the you know, in South Florida, the thunderstorms always threw out the lights.
Right.
So when we would be out, when the lights would be out, you know, he would tell us stories, scary stories, and we couldn't wait to hear these stories. He would tell us these stories. But what we loved most about Uncle Sam was Uncle Sam could draw a train wreck.
Wow.
And when he drew this train wreck, he had body parts out of the car, heads hanging out of the car. And we were just blown away and amazed by how creative he was.
Wow.
And that was one of my fondest memories, where all of us kids would gather around to hear him talk and tell the story of what he had drew. And it was interesting. And that's one of my ooh, you see, I'm such a klutz. That's one of my fondest memories.
Oh, man.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, so, you know, my fondest memories of, you know, just we went to church a lot.
A lot?
Yeah, we went to church a lot. And so we would travel a lot to, like, Jupiter and everything like that. And, like, one of my fondest memories is having the teen talent contest where, you know, we would do teen talent. And we had a good time. You know, we had a good time. I remember us going, you know, again, my mom, I remember we wanted to go to Disney World. It was me, my cousins, Terrence and Tyrone, and my sister Audrey. We wanted to go to Disney World. And my mom said to us, she said, okay, if y'all want to go to Disney World, y'all going to have to work for it. So, you know, we figured that we're going to do chores or whatever like that. But it kind of, she says, no, we're going to pick oranges. Yes, sir, we're going to pick oranges. And so we went out there, we picked oranges. There was a wasp out there. There was snakes out there. And, I mean, you making pennies on the dollar, you know, to pick those oranges. But what we did, we made sure that we picked those oranges. I mean, we would get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, travel about an hour and a half to the orange grove, stay out there till 3 o'clock in the afternoon, come back, you know, maybe we do chores, maybe we play or whatever, and we right back at it. And we was doing it for 5 days a week.
To go to Disney
To go to Disney World.
Persistent. Good.
Man, I seen some wild spot there, man. I was like, man, I don't see how people do this for a living. And it was hot. You know, Florida's hot.
It's always hot.
Yeah, so you know, so that was one of my fondest memories, you know, growing up. You know, so let's talk about our dating thing. All right. All right.
Let's go there.
Yeah, we want to go there. yeah, we want to go there. We talk about our dating. All right. We talk about our dating. Well, I want to say this: we were parents at a young age.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
We were parents. How old were you when you had your first child?
I was 14.
You was 14. All right. And I know I was 15 when my child was born, but I was 14 when it conceived. And then me being who I am and all crazy, I went back and had another child at 16.
Yeah, I wasn't that crazy.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely not. Not going to happen.
Not going to happen, all right? And so one of my things is, you know, because, you know, this marriage in real life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so at 16, I was married at 16. Mm-hmm. I was married at 16. And I would tell you, you know, we got on red, right?
Yeah.
Man, that day, my eyes was red as fire because I didn't want to do it. But because we grew up in a Pentecostal house, my mom, God rest her soul, I mean, she passed away last year. But she, you know, she told me some things, and because I had ran away from home. I was staying in Pompano at the time, and they were still in Pelican Lake in Pahokee, Florida. And while I was in Pompano, I ran away from home because I did not want to do it. I did not want to get married. So my mom told me some things, you know, because my dad had a heart attack, and I didn't want to mess with my dad. And then my mom and dad were deacons and mothers of the missionaries of the church and everything like that. And so I went, and I even asked the bishop. I said, I don't want to do this. Can you talk to them? And he said, well, them your parents. I was 16. And, you know, and they said, well, I went through it, but that was one of the, you know, I wouldn't say the saddest day of my life, but it was something I didn't want to do at that age, you know. And so me being who I am, I'm supposed to be married on paper, but I still got all kind of girlfriends over in Pompano.
Shame.
Yes, sir. I remember, hey, man, I remember this time, man, we were staying in Pompano. She had came up, stayed in Pompano, and boy, she was so mad at me, and that she came out. You remember Al Green got poured on with the grits?
Yes.
Man, she came out with hot water at me, man, one time. Get ready to pour hot water at me. I took off running. Wow. But you know, that was part of, you know, my early childhood. And so when you got pregnant with the twins, right? Mm-hmm. I know my mom and my dad didn't think they were mine at first, right? Mm-hmm. Right, you talking?
Yes, I'm talking. Talking. No, they didn't. But before we get to the twins, let's talk about how we met, how we came about, and then let's hit up with the twins. We'll end up with the twins.
So how did we meet then?
Okay, so I know you've heard him mention about this teen talent contest. And the teen talent was like all of the youth in the district would go down to, I can't even remember where, Lakeland, Florida, I think Lakeland. It was. And we would go and we would compete in competitions against other soloists, other choirs, just a whole different thing. So I happened to be away at that particular competition. And I don't want to knock this microphone again. So I happened to be away at this competition. And when I come back, I hear like, the girls from church, you know, it's like, hey, you know, Eric's mom, I call her Sister Richards. Sister Richards came, you know, and she brought her son, and he is cute. I was like, oh, the one that's going to be my husband? And they were like, you never seen him before. How you know he's going to be your husband? I said, I just know he is. They was like, girl, you crazy. Not only that, he don't date girls from this side of the track. I said, watch.
All right.
I said, watch. And so when I finally met him, we dated off and on a little bit. Because as you know, he was a player.
Yes, sir.
So I had to try and get in where I could fit in. And and so we dated a little bit, and then the twins came along.
Yeah, the twins came along.
We were in our 20s. We didn't know it was twins until we were 7 months pregnant. One of them was hiding behind the other, so the heartbeats were in sync, and they did not know. So when we go for an ultrasound, I'm thinking, boy, this is a boy. All I need is 2 kids, a girl and a boy. I'm so excited. I'm like, this is a big baby, though. I kept telling my mom, I said, it's a big baby. She was like, yeah, pretty big. She said, but we going to handle things. Everything's going to be okay. We get to the ultrasound. My mom is like, hey, what's going on there? And the tech is saying, hold on. I'm going to let you know. So finally, at the end of it, she said, ma'am, do you want to know what sex it is? And I was like, yeah, I was waiting for this boy. I was like, his name's going to be Patrick. He's going to be awesome. Eric was not even a thought to name him Eric. And so when she said, you want to know? And I said, yes. And she said, girls. And I said, a girl? She said, no, 2 girls. And I was like, 2 girls? Oh, my goodness, like 2 babies? She was like, yeah. I was like, are they separate? She was like, nope, they in there together. They're identical. And I was like, oh, boy. So I had to rush back to the store and buy one of everything, tried to match up stuff, which I couldn't because I always shop early for babies. So I had to, just, come into my own. So I think Eric met them at the hospital when...
Yeah, I came down because, before we get there, I got to tell, this thing because we married in real life. So, again, you put it out there that I was a player, right? I was a player from the Himalayas, doggy dog. And you remember the time where I brought, so I had got divorced from this young lady, and I was in the military. We were in the military at the time. And so I was getting ready to marry this other young lady. And so I brought this young lady while you was pregnant to the picnic.
To the church picnic.
To the church picnic. While you was pregnant with my twins, I brought somebody else. Man, I wish y'all could hear our engineer. She just freaking out. Hey, so let me ask you this: if you remember that, how did you feel? Tell everybody how did you feel?
How do you think I feel, babe?
Talk to you about.
How do you think I feel? I was pregnant carrying your one baby at the time, though I thought. I was pregnant carrying your baby, and there you were engaged to be married to someone else. But you know what my mom said to me? She said, if it's meant to be, it'll be. She said, sometimes you have to let things go. And when they come back, it's yours. If they stay gone, then you dodged the bullet. It never was. So I was like, okay. Broke my heart. I cried throughout their pregnancy, and, just kind of kept myself busy. And, it was hard. It was hard.
And so for 4 years, I was not involved into the twins' life.
4 years.
4 years. Until when? Somebody said something.
There were daddy-daughter something at daycare. And, Nikki never really asked, but Nat was like, those are our daughters, Natalie and Nicole.
Yeah, that's a twin.
And Nat was like, where's our dad? And it just really caught me off guard because they had never asked. So they were taken care of. My cousin stayed in the home with us who was a male, so they kind of bounced off him when they needed that male figure in their life. So she asked, and I really could not say, well, I said, I'm not really sure at this particular point, but I was thinking maybe he did somewhere.
Oh,
because then, I was bitter.
Man,
can you imagine me catching the city bus with a 4-year-old and 2 carriers?
No, so
and
the 4-year-old
they was kind of chunky.
The 4-year-old was who?
The 4-year-old was Peaches.
Peaches. Okay.
That's my oldest daughter. We call her Peaches, but her name is Jacqueline.
All right.
And so can you imagine trying to catch the city bus with a 4-year-old and 2 carriers, 2 diaper bags, because I wasn't really smart to combine them just yet. And it was difficult. So I really went through a lot of emotional and mental struggles. And I'm going to be honest, babe, I wanted your dad.
Good
but I'm
Lord.
so glad you're not.
I'm so glad God kept me. All right.
So yeah, it was difficult. But we managed with the help of my grandma, God bless her soul, and my mom. Yeah, and my sissy, my sister, she would babysit, and she would, So I had a support system.
Yeah, the support system.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean,
and my auntie Missy.
And your auntie Missy, she did it too. Well, I thank God because I forgot to mention Antonio, that was my firstborn, and he was shot in 2006, gun violence. And then Erica, she's over there in Palm Beach, doing her thing. So, I mean, I would say I am very proud of our children.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
I'm very proud. Three of them got their masters. One is an RN. One works distribution. So, man, all of them are doing their thing, and I'm so happy. I'm so happy with that. Proud. I'm really, really, really proud of our kids.
I am too. I am grateful, but when you place them back in the master's hand, there's no limit to what they can accomplish, and has always been our goal, is to make sure that we laid a foundation with the Lord in them, and that they know who to call on when they can't get to us. And I think, without the help of the Lord, only God knows where they would be or we would be.
Yeah, definitely.
So we're truly grateful to Him.
Well, you remember on that red, long couch? That couch about as long as a Continental. Now, I know y'all don't know, I know young people, y'all don't know what a Continental, but an old Continental. Man, that car was there, and we just sat there when you came to Quantico and said, Lord, we can't raise these kids by ourselves. We need your help, and we gave our life, back over to God, because we were saved at young, and we gave our life back over to God, and so God really helped us, get that. How did we get to Quantico though? Because you were flying up to, right?
Yeah.
You were flying up to Quantico. I was in the military, flying up to Quantico. I had, again at the 4-year, I start, meeting the kids, and they welcomed me, and you welcomed me, so I thank God for that. I know you were still mad at me, but, and we started dating. You start flying up to Quantico, coming to see your baby.
I did. I came to see you, but, babe, you came correct. And I think that's the thing. Even though I went through that and I struggled, when you came with an apology. You came with a resolution. Let's make it right. I've been going through this, and you've been going through that, but let's see how we can pull it together. And I have to be honest with you. When we finally did get married, I was not in love with you.
Oh,
I was not in love with you,
okay.
But I knew that I wanted a strong figure in my children's life and someone that they were familiar with. So, we began to talk on the phone and whatnot, and then I would fly in to see you for the weekend. You would fly down. We would do some crazy stuff, like Virginia's a 14-hour drive. This guy would drive all the way down to Virginia to see me for 24 hours and drive all the way back. So I was like, okay,
yeah.
He came on this side of the track, y'all.
Speaking of, Valentine's Day, I know Valentine's Day, we're going to talk about it at the end, but you remember that one Valentine's Day, I just drove all the way down, and I hit you, drove you back, drove back. So, yeah.
Persistence.
Yeah, I was persistent. So we were getting ready to say, okay, we decided to get married, and you came home. You were excited. I did the right thing. I know today, young people, especially the males, they don't want to do like the tradition. They don't want to ask the parents. Kids say, I can do whatever I want to do. I can get married if I want to. I don't have to ask the parents or anything like that. But what I did, I asked your mom, and first I apologized to your mom, and I asked your mom. She says, "Oh yeah, I think she was tired of you. She was about ready to get rid of you anyway." But she came. She said okay, and so I asked you about it. You said oh, yeah. You said okay. So we were planning a wedding, right? We're planning a wedding, and so what happened? What happened?
So we were planning a wedding, but I had not informed my family that I had gotten married. So that we were going to get married. That's what it was. So we was getting ready to plan this wedding, but it was just so much going on with the family. Like, I want to do this, I want to do this, and you should let me do this, and you should let me do it. It just got so overwhelming that one day I flew up. I think it was Martin Luther King weekend. No. Because we were talking on the phone. And I said to you, you know what? When you told me about it, I said, well, the next time you come up. Yeah.
That's right. I said, the next time you come up, we getting married.
And I said, okay.
That's it.
Not no get down on your knee, propose. No, when you come up here, we getting married.
You getting married, yeah, that's
my
it.
My crazy self was like, oh, okay. So we ended up, and we got married.
We got married right there in Manassas, Virginia.
Oh, you remember?
Yeah, April 27th. Yeah, right in front of the judge. That's where we got. Yep. And I remember that. Hey, one thing I want to tell you, men, don't forget dates. Don't forget anniversary. Don't forget birthdays. You know, you need to make sure that you keep those things in remembrance. And if you can't remember, make sure you put it on a calendar. Mm-hmm. Put it on your phone so it'll remind you, because you do not want to forget 2 dates. You know, you don't forget the day you got married and your spouse's birthday. No law. You don't want to. You really don't want to do that. So we got married, and you came up to Quantico. Eventually, you came up to Quantico, and that's where we recommitted ourselves. And so with marriage, we lived in Quantico. What were some of the things you remember about Quantico?
Oh, I remember that I had never seen snow before.
Mm-hmm.
So the first year I moved there was a blizzard. It had been the worst blizzard since 1967. That's the year I was born. So Eric and I was stuck and trapped in the house, newly married. For how many days? Like 12 days?
I
we
couldn't get out.
It was a long time.
But it was some good days, though.
It was
some good days.
But we definitely had to separate, and I would go upstairs, and he would stay downstairs because we just 12 days. This cabin fever was really bad. But yeah, that was one of the things that I remember in Okinawa. It was fun.
In Quantico.
I'm
sorry. Quantico. So the kids came up, and I hopefully enjoy. We're gonna one of these days, one of these podcasts. I don't know, next one or whatever, we're going to have the kids on.
Okay.
Yeah, we have the kids, and let them talk about some memories, and I hope they don't get mad at me or whatever. Talk about some memories and some fun things, so we're going to make sure we have the kids on. So we left Quantico, we went to Fort Lee, and in Fort Lee, that's when the little one came, the young baby came, Jordan, Yeah, that's so you finally got your son.
Yeah, we knew he was a son right away. At 3 months pregnant, he was like, he in there sucking his thumb. I was like, okay, and so it is a boy, huh? They was like, you usually can't tell at 3 months, but they was like, oh, it's a boy, and it was a boy.
Yeah, okay. And so one of the things I remember, we was trusting God. We were believing God. We were believing in God. And I remember you in the hospital having Jordan.
Yeah.
But you having Jordan, but we didn't have no food at the house.
No food.
No food at the house. And man, you were there, and I was just beginning to pray. And one day we went while you was there in the hospital. Went to the mailbox, and there was a check in the mail.
Amen.
He
may not come when you
want
it,
but he right on time.
So can you imagine me in the hospital, just gave birth to a child. I'm in the hospital. I'm eating because I'm in the hospital. The baby's eating because he's in the hospital, but I have 3 kids at home and my husband. I have no idea how they're going to eat. And I was just there. And I had cesarean, so it wasn't like I could get up and do anything.
Right.
But God made a way. God has always made a way.
He's always
made a way.
He's always made a way for us. And we, you put your faith in him, he will come through.
Yes, he will.
He will come through, I know I'm going to skip, but I got to go to, I was thinking about something today of how God made a way for us. You remember, and we probably going to have to do a part 2 of this, but I just have to tell somebody this because I want somebody to really, really hear what I'm about to say. At one time, we was getting ready to, just be homeless.
Yeah.
Rent was due and everything like that. This was one of the first times. And we had, you remember, I always made sure, just came from Okinawa not too long, but I always made sure you had the bling bling in Okinawa, that I could afford it, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so you had plenty of jewelry. I went to Thailand and all of those places, and I would make sure you have jewelry. And rent was due, and I remember asking you, say, babe, we down and out, and you said, just go ahead and pawn the jewelry. And I was like, whoa, and I had this cross. I had this cross that you bought me, and I love that cross. And no matter how many crosses you bought me, babe, I got to tell you this, that cross right there was so sentimental to me. And so I'm headed to the pawn shop on Oakland Park Boulevard. For those who from South Florida on Oakland Park Boulevard, and I'm on the Oakland Park, and I'm going across the hill over the turnpike. And I remember it so specific because I was talking to Bishop Banks, who is my spiritual father, and I began to cry. I began to weep, and I'm driving. I began to just weep because I felt that even though we were trusting God, that I didn't have faith in God, right? Because now I'm getting ready to pawn the jewelry that I got you and the cross that you gave me. And I'm going across this hill, and I'm talking to him, and I'm saying, Bishop, am I not trusting God? As me being the head of the house, right? Am I not trusting God? Because now I'm going to pawn the jewelry that I gave my wife, and I'm going to pawn the very cross that she gave me that we love so much, you know? And I mean, I began to weep and to weep. And when I thought about this today, I began to cry as well. And I got emotional. I'm getting emotional now because, and Bishop said to me, he says, you know, you got the jewelry, right? I said, yeah. He said, you got to do what you got to do. You the man. You got to do what you got to do. You don't want your wife to be sleeping on the bench. I said, no, I don't. He says, you know, sometimes God takes away the very thing that we put value on in order to see trust in him.
You better say that.
You know, you look at, he began to talk about Abraham and Isaac, you know, and, you know, I want to tell somebody is that, you know, sometimes, you know, we don't want to give up what God has given us because maybe we got status, you know, and the jury showed us status, you know, to me, it represents status. You know, some people are going through something right now and they got a big old car and they can't afford the car, but they can't afford rent too. And they're saying, no, I got to keep the car. I got to keep the car now, you know, because that car gets you there. But God is saying, no, you can downsize. You know, you're in a big old house, downsize to what you can afford. And we, you know, upon that jury and you know, but I felt real bad. I felt real bad. But you know what? What I found from that day, I made, you know, what made me in my mind is that you my ride or die chick.
I'm your ride or die.
Yeah. You my ride or die chick because, you know, you willingly gave up the jury. And I saw it on your face. You know, you willingly gave up all of that jewelry in order to make sure that the family was taken care of. And so, I just want to say thank you for that.
Oh, no problem, baby.
All right, thank you for that.
I'll do it again and again and again.
You do it again?
It's material things, you know. And, you know, God has a way of giving you even something better. Look what he did for Job.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
I want to thank you for being my ride or die. You know?
Yeah. He loves me.
Yeah, baby, I love you. I love you so much. You know, I really do love you. Well, it's 8:01. It's 8:01. Man, this time went by. So we got to do a number 2 because we ain't even got to this side. We got some ministry things that we got to talk through to help somebody. And so it's 8:01. And so we want to invite anybody that wants to call in. You know, we want to invite them to call in to the show if they want to. The number is 754-222-2219. 754-222-2219. They could call in to the show. And we see people chatting. We see Sean is here. We see Sister Cynthia is here. We see our daughter Nikki is here.
Hey, Nikki.
Hey. TJ, you know, I'm glad you let us know there was no sound. That was all my fault, not turning on the mic. And so we thank God, and we see our baby boy who's getting ready to have.
Hey, Jordan.
We're getting ready to have another grandchild.
Yay.
How many we got now? That'll make what?
I don't know.
That'll probably make 9, right? 9.
I think 9. Well, you know, we always count them and then we forget.
Yeah.
But
I think it's 9. I think it's 9. I think it's 9.
Yeah. Majority girls.
Majority girls. Yes. Majority girls. And so, you know, we need to make sure. So I'm going to get this application here to see who's going to call in. If anybody wants to call in, they can. call in to the show. Yeah, they can call into the show, 754-222-2219, 754-222-2219. If they want to call in and say something, they can do that. We want to give a shout out to our engineer, Carolina.
Thank you, Carolina.
Thank you, Carolina. You know, we working through the things here. She's the one that keep us, on time and in the moment. In the moment, right? While we're waiting and to see if anybody wants to call in, 754-222-2219. We'll just talk about ministry. Ministry. We almost got divorced because of ministry, right?
Yes. Yeah. So many times.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I think it's twice, right? Twice. I think it's twice.
Well, I'm not talking about how many times. I'm talking about how many issues that came with ministry.
Okay, yeah.
Because, the girls were off at college, and it was just me, you, and Jordan. And me and Jordan spent a lot of time, just the two of us, and I'd be like, well, you're never here for Sunday dinner. You're never here for this because you're always at the church. You're always at the church. You're always at the church.
Right.
Finally, I told him, you know what? Why don't you take your bed and your clothes and just move on over there to the church.
The church.
I got this.
Me and
Jordan, we got this. And then I told him, then I threatened one day you gonna come home from that church and me and Jordan gonna be gone. We gonna be gone.
and so what happened? We went down to see our spiritual father.
Yeah, we went down and got some
counseling. So I'm telling you, couples, you got to get some counseling.
Yeah,
you must get counseling. We're certified pre-marriage counselors, also certified mentor counseling. So but we went down. And, boy, I'll never forget that day as long as I live. What did Bishop tell you?
I told him I was leaving. I said, Bishop, I had enough. He's always at the church. There's no communication. I'm done. I'm leaving. I'm going to South Carolina to stay with my mom. Now, mind you, guys, I am a city girl. My mom lived in the country. Where the nearest neighbor is almost a... Well, she's in a community now with family, but no, I don't do chickens and cows and
you couldn't
no.
You couldn't even get a phone signal out there.
I am a city girl, so I told him I was leaving. I'm gone. And he said to me, if you could just give it a month. He said, if you give it a month, he said, I'm gonna talk to the boy. I'm gonna talk to him. I'm gonna get him right. But if you give it a month. And it don't work, I'll come and bubble wrap your stuff and drive you to South Carolina myself.
Yeah.
I said, okay, don't messing around because I don't think it's going to change in a month. And it changed.
Yeah, it changed. You left. Remember, he told you, Patsy, can I talk to him by himself? And Bishop is a holy man.
Yeah.
But I believe if Bishop could curse, he would have told me. He was like, "What in the world you doing?" He said, "You got a good woman, and you out there at the church." He says, "Look, the church is gonna be there." That's what he told me. The church is gonna be there. Mind you, we're working for a mega ministry. He said the church is gonna be there, but you want to make sure that if the church is not there, that you got your family. And so. That's just an encouragement to some people that, they're working in ministry and doing all of this for the church. But you got to look behind when the church closes down, because the church can close down. You want to make sure that your family is with you. And so, he got into my face. He got into my grill. And so I'm glad that he did. And we all need people to tell us the truth. That's what we do. We need people to tell us the truth. Well, we got one caller on the line. We want you to tell us your name and where you're calling from. We're going to make sure that this is all working right here. Is it Sister Sean?
Yes, it is.
Hey, Sean.
Hey.
All right. How you doing? And what's going on? What you want to talk to us about?
No, I'm just enjoying listening to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you for calling in.
Okay.
All right.
That's all I want to say.
All right, man. God bless you. Thank you for calling in.
All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Yeah, Sister Sean. She been with us for. She been with
Ever.
us, yeah, forever. Yeah. She been with us forever. You know, and
Since we started.
yeah, you know, her
And
oldest
sister.
son
Mm-hmm.
and our son, man, they good friends. They real good. They brothers. Yeah, they brothers.
Oh, we have
Oh,
another
we got
one.
another caller. You know, you tell us what's your name and where you calling from.
Hello, my name is Nicole Richards. I am one of the children, one of your kids,
Hey,
calling
Nikki.
from Plantation, Florida. Hey, I had a question. I've heard these, everything about y'all marriage as my parents for such a long time, and even as I listen to you now, I hear things that I've never heard before.
Right.
But you guys brought up the importance of counseling. And a lot of times, I think some couples make a misstep when they don't get premarital counseling. So I was wondering, did you guys have premarital counseling? If not, do you think that would have helped the first few years of marriage? And do you recommend premarital counseling?
Okay.
Make a misstep when you don't get premarital counseling.
All right, hold on. Okay, so hold on. Is there this other caller? What's your answer to that, baby?
My answer to that is absolutely, absolutely. Had we gotten counseling, premarital counseling, there would have been some obstacles that we probably wouldn't have had because we would have been a little bit more apt as to falling back on how we was counseling and I guess whoever was whoever counseled us. So definitely, I recommend it 100%. 100%. You can't. It's like this. Do you go in the beach to take a swim if you don't know how to swim? You do not.
Wow.
That does not make sense. And marriage is the same thing. You stepping out there into this whole different. This ain't no more. I'm single. I can do what I want to do. Anything. This is a serious commitment. And if you're not serious about it, don't step in that. Don't step into it. Get that counseling. I think their first question was, do I think we should have? Oh, yeah, definitely premarital counseling, and definitely had we gotten it beforehand, we probably wouldn't have been at that place of about to get a divorce.
Yeah. You know, we got advice from our mothers.
Yeah, we did.
And I want to tell everybody, I love my mother-in-law. I tell you that. Boy, that my mother-in-law spoils me, and I thank God for my mother-in-law. You know. And I thank God for my mom. And both of them, they gave us advice. I think one time my mom told you, said, don't be having any and all these women in the house.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and then my mom also said, you know, you cannot be around a person 365 days a year, 24 hours a day and not get tired of them. So she's, that's why we try to do little separate vacations and things like that, so when, it's like this, when what do they say, the fondness make the heart grow stronger or something like that.
Makes the heart grow fonder.
And so, when you were gone, boy, I was like, man, I got to be with my baby. So it was like, I wanted you to come back. So yeah, that was some good advice. So yeah, pre-marriage counseling is very, very, very important. And yeah, we would have been better off.
Yeah.
We would have been better off. All right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, we got somebody else. We our last caller. We got somebody else on the line. You tell us where you're calling from, your name. Unmute yourself.
Yeah, he's muted. Can you unmute him?
There's also somebody who asked the number again.
Oh, the number is 754-222-2219. 754-222-2219. Okay. There we go. You ready? Talk now.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Hello, my name is Jordan, and I'm calling from Apollo Beach, Florida.
Uh-huh.
Hi, Jordan.
Hi, Jordan.
Hi. How are y'all doing?
Good.
What's up? What you want to talk to us about?
Well, I've just been listening to the podcast, first time listener, and I'm learning a lot of things about you, Dad, that I didn't know before, and I got to commend you on being honest.
Oh, okay. Thank you, son.
And learning a lot about your player past.
Oh man,
Um,
yeah.
so just calling in to say that I'm enjoying listening, and I wanted to know when you were in counseling with Bishop Banks and Mom was ready to leave. It's like what did you do to make her stay? Because obviously you guys are still married. So what exactly did you do? What advice did you get to want to keep her on?
All right. Well, I mean, what I did, Jay, was I listened to what he said. We prayed together, and he says, the word is going to direct you. And I always had him in my ear, and I remember what he said. Um, and I went home, and I asked your mom, what could I do? You were there, and I tried, and I said, and once I felt her pain, I said, I gotta make a change. I must make a change. When you feel your partner's pain, you got to make a change, because now you're feeling them, and so you got to make a change. 'Cause if you don't want the marriage to work, you don't have to make a change. But if you understand that marriage is a covenant and not a contract,
right there,
right?
there.
Because see, what happens is I think a lot of people think marriage is a contract. And when you're a contract and you have a disagreement, you tear the contract up, and you can go to court, you can sue each other, you can do whatever. But when it's a covenant, you can't tear a covenant up.
Amen.
A covenant goes through thick and thin.
That's right.
Right? And you feel what the other person is feeling. And so I felt what your mom was feeling, and I heard her. That's another thing. You got to hear what she's saying, And so I heard her, and I had to make a change, and I had to go back to the ministry and say, okay, the times when y'all call, I'm not going to be available. I can't. I'm not going to be able to do everything. I'm not going to be able to do computers, the sync ministry, the children's ministry, and all this stuff. No, the day I'm off, I'm off. So if you call, you're not going to get an answer. I just had to do that, And so I thank God that I did make that change.
I'm glad he made that change too.
You glad I made that change too, Jay?
Well, yes, I am. I got to say I'm pretty happy about that.
All right, son. Thank you for calling.
Oh, yeah, of course. Anytime.
All right. Okay. All right. We have another caller here. All right. We got another caller. What's your name and where you calling from?
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Hi, this is and my question is, what is the secret to a long-lasting?
What is the secret to the long-lasting marriage?
Yeah, I've been in the game for 7 years, and I'm trying to go 7 more. What is the secret? Because obviously, in the African American community, divorce is like at a high rate. So, what would be the secret to keep your marriage going and not fall into that bracket?
Okay. All right. Well, babe, what you think?
I think first understanding that neither one of you are perfect. That you're gonna have you have flaws, and what you're willing to accept, and what you're willing to grow on, and what you're willing to build on. Nobody's perfect, and two people in a house. Trust me, I remember example. My daughters was roommates, and they could barely stand each other. So imagine you with this man, and you with them all the time. Y'all live in the same house, and you with this woman. Y'all live in the same household. Basically, y'all doing life together, and don't expect for it to be perfect all the time. Be patient. Be understanding. Both ways. Here, like Eric was saying earlier. You got to hear each other, not just, some people, you have to listen. Some say, oh, I'm listening to you. No, but are you hearing me? So communication is definitely key. You have to keep the doors of communication open, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. You got to keep that communication line going, because that's one thing. We're not psychic. We can't tell what the other person is thinking or how they're feeling if they don't express that and share it with us, and vice versa. We have to be upfront. Don't let things pile up and pile up and pile up and pile up. And then when that one thing happened, like somebody didn't restore the dish, the laundry.
Yes, sir.
Like somebody didn't restore the laundry soap, and it was your time to do your laundry, and there was no laundry. So now you fussing and you yelling. Now everything that was piling up and piling up, all of that's coming out now, because this laundry soap done tip you over the edge. So my advice would be, don't let any situation go unresolved. Don't push it to the side and say, you know what, I'm just going to move on because I'm not getting the answers that I want. No. Revisit it. If you have to walk away, calm down, come back and revisit it. Set the atmosphere. Make the atmosphere in the living room. See opposites. Even if you have to light a candle, because sometimes when it's bright, loud, your voice is louder. But if you bring down the atmosphere, tone down the lights, and then get into that, listen, this is how I'm feeling right now. And he may say, she may say, well, that's not what I intended. It may not be what you intended, but that's how I feel. And I need you to clarify for me what was your intentions on this. So I guess to round it all up, I would say communication, accepting each other for who they are, and not expecting the person to be who your dad was. When your dad was raising you, or expecting your wife to be like your mom, because this is a whole different ball game.
Yeah. And I would add, as the pastor in me, you're putting Jesus first, putting God, making sure he's the center of it all.
Yeah.
And, some of us, we live off the culture, we can't rely on the culture as far as, how a marriage should work. Sometimes I get mad when I hear men say, they say it as a possession, my wife. It's not as my wife, like that, but it's like a possession, my wife, and I really don't like that. And one of the hardest things I think for guys, especially now, is marrying an independent woman. Independent woman, a woman that she was fine all by herself. She could pay her bills by herself. She can do all of these things by herself, and then you marry her, and then you got to know how to cultivate that, how to communicate that, how to you just can't come up and say, we married now, I'm supposed to do this. No. You got to know how to cultivate that marriage and cultivate that thing, because you got to remember, she used to do all of this by herself. She don't need you to take out the garbage can. She could take the garbage out. Matter of fact, she can go to get an oil change. She don't need you to do it, So the way you talk to a young lady, the way you talk to your wife is very, very important. Mm-hmm. So that goes back to communication. Yeah. Communication. And communication is the key on anything. It doesn't matter if you're talking about intimacy, it doesn't talking about money. You got to communicate. And I was not a very good communicator at all. Yeah, and so that's why you used to yell at me. Say, come on, talk. When I say yell, I mean your yelling was, come on, talk. And I shut down, but that's not right. I needed to communicate and let you know, because you wanted to know how I felt about something. I wanted to just shut up, and that was not right.
Yeah, and also, too, I know, we are the women of the world, and we got our own thing, like Neo says, but sometimes men want to be a man. They don't want you to open the door. They don't want you to buy the meal. Sometimes they want to see you. They want to say, you know what, my wife a hustler. My wife got my wife. They want that too, but they also want that sensitive side, that feminine side, that they know that you can still use a hug or a cuddle every now and then. So it has to be a balance. Right. It has to be a balance.
Yeah, it has to be a balance. I hope that answers the question, Lady Ace.
Thank you so much for calling in.
It does. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for calling in. All right. Well, we're getting ready to wrap this up. We know, like we said, when is tomorrow? Tomorrow is Valentine's Day,
yes.
Right? So I want to say happy Valentine's Day to everybody who's listening.
Happy
Valentine's Day to you, babe. I want to love you. What is one of the most memorable Valentine's Day that you can remember?
I have two, but the most recent one was when you did a backyard. You set up the backyard with a table, with lights, and it was so sweet. And I was like, yeah.
Oh, there it is right there.
Yeah, when you did that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Uh-huh.
I was like, look at him.
Yes,
Got
sir.
a tablecloth. I think that's, what was that? We actually didn't get
The food. Yeah, we didn't get the food, and I was mad. Boy, I was mad. We didn't get the food. We didn't get the food on time, so I was very, very mad. So
But it was a thought that counted. It was really, really sweet. And I think, sometimes you don't have to go out. You can do right in your own home.
yeah, so I want to tell you guys, be creative. And Jordan and those guys who listen, be creative. Sometimes we would have a picnic right in our living room, right? On date night, just have a picnic, just spread out a blanket and have a picnic, watch a movie. So be creative tomorrow. Now, don't be cheap, but be creative. All right?
Okay.
All right. Well, baby, I love you. Thank you. I know we had some kinks in the and I think we'll get that worked out. And again, we want to thank everyone. We want to thank everyone for calling in. Thank you for trusting us for these last couple of minutes. And we want to say, hey, we'll see you in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, we'll be back right on for Real Life, Marriage in Real Life.
Marriage in Real Life.
All right? And we'll probably be doing part 2 of getting to know who we are, because we can't talk about topics until we get to know, people get to know us.
Who we are.
So if you want to send in a topic, make sure you put it in the comments.
Yes.
Because once we edit the video, the live chat goes away. So make sure you put it in the comments. Send it right there. You see how to send us DMs. And so let us know. Make sure you subscribe to Real Life TV 1 and also to Marriage in Real Life podcast on Instagram, Facebook. We there. So make sure you do that.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. God bless.
God bless you.
If you're hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode. And for that, we want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We hope you enjoyed this new episode. And if you did, please rate and review our show on your favorite podcast channel. Please share this episode with others who may be interested in this topic. Also, feel free to let us know what topics you'd like to see covered in future episodes. Get in touch in the comments or on any social media networks at Marriage in Real Life Podcast. See you next week for a new episode.